know it's getting hotter till the pot starts to bubble and the bubbles get big. And then the frog in the water doesn't hop up any farther, 'cause his legs are all jelly and his fingers all empty.
All right, everyone, welcome back. Here we are chugging through the summer, a little hotter this week, but nonetheless, the show goes on. Today, I have a really special guest. Amelia Day kind of caught me off guard with Ego Trip, her latest record that came out in June the 12th. I wasn't, it wasn't really on my radar, but I started listening to it, and then I started listening to it more, and then I was like, okay, I got to find Amelia and get her on this show to talk about it, because it's great storytelling, Amelia. I'll tell you that. I think that you're a great writer. So thank you so much. And I mean, it's very kind of like there's country in there. There's definitely folk in there. It has pop tones. I mean, even throw some rock and roll in there. It has a lot of shades of styles, but still very distinct for this artist. And I've been really enjoying it. And I think the album kind of talks a lot about life's changes, we'll say, and the evolution of life as we live through these days of ours, as the days of our lives unroll. Jeez, that's almost like a soap opera. I digress. Amelia, thanks so much for hopping on here today. I was really excited to talk to you about your music in particular. I tend to like starting these off with a little walk down where all this began. Now, I know that you're still a young, musician, singer, songwriter. I mean, your best days are yet to come, but what was it about music that's kind of gotten you hooked? I did read some kind of preamble that you have been addicted to music since the very start that you can recall anyway. Can you pull up a few of those little memories that kind of really solidified where music was going to live in your life?
Totally. I mean, I've always loved, we had this upright piano in my family home. And both of my parents, you took piano lessons in middle school and high school and stuff. And so they'd sometimes sit down and just open up one of their classical books and just play something. Both very, very intermediate just for fun. But I was just completely enraptured by that. And so even when I was 3 or 4, I'd just go and just poke around on the keys and stuff. And we even have a couple of videos, trying to get my dad to, they're all on CDs and stuff. And so he needs to go through them. We need to get those videos back. There's a couple where I was super little, coming up with little silly songs just off the top about flying around and exploring things. And so, yeah, when I was I think 5 years old, I asked my parents if I could take piano lesson, just because I loved hearing them play so much, and I wanted to learn how to do that as well. And so I ended up taking lessons for quite a while, all the way up through high school. And there definitely were points where I wanted to quit. My parents were like, "Hey, you got to stick with this." But yeah, that was kind of my first introduction to really learning an instrument and learning how to read sheet music, stuff like that. And I was lucky to have a teacher who just let me improvise a lot, and gave me composition assignments and stuff. So that definitely just, got me hooked from the get-go.
Amazing. And what was your first foray into actually singer-songwritering? When did you start penning your first songs, and what kind of inspired you to make that next step from loving music and being a great, music aficionado and stuff like that, to saying, okay, I'm crossing the Rubicon here and I want to start writing my own songs? What was that experience like? Do you remember that shift that happened?
Totally. Yeah. I had some little piano compositions and stuff that I was writing in 5th grade or so. But as I went into middle school, I always loved writing short stories and poetry, kind of even more so, I think. Something that I call myself kind of an author, when I was little. Both because I didn't really have any realistic idea of like what being a musician would look like. So that was kind of like one of those dreams that I was like, well, I would love to do this, but I don't think it's even possible, because that's kind of like the narrative you're told when you're younger. But I always just loved writing prose and reading a ton. And so those kind of ended up coming together a little more in middle school, just listening to, kind of getting to explore music on my own for the first time, as far as like what I'm listening to, and buying my own CDs and like downloading stuff off iTunes. And so I got even deeper into like some of the contemporary folk artists at the time, some of the folk rock artists, Americana stuff, and just started like writing little half songs on the piano and taking voice memos and stuff. And so that was kind of my first start into things. And obviously, like as a preteen, like you're just everything's very new and very emotional. And so like drawing from some of those like new experiences and feelings, like definitely provides a lot of fodder for writing writing a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So
first,
it seems like you were much more into the writing process before the music process. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah. Honestly, I always, I loved listening to music, and I did love like messing around on the keys and stuff. But I think at the core of everything is even more so being drawn to storytelling.
Yeah. And is storytelling always when you're feeling things deeply and you're trying to work through things, or are you able to just write just for the fun of it and kind of like write, scenarios or prose or descriptions? Like, how do you kind of like, what's your jive? Like, is it really when you're really feeling something and there's a lot of emotion where that just has to come out? Or can you also kind of dabble in kind of more the light side of things as well?
Yeah, I think earlier on it was more so like I'm feeling these emotions and I need to put something on paper. But I think more of my storytelling and like songwriting comes from just being really interested in a concept, like an idea strikes me, or I'm thinking a lot about like some kind of philosophical thing or like social issue or something, and just wanting to, it is another form of like kind of being struck by an emotion and needing to get it out in some way, but in less of like a personal sense, I guess. But this project, as far as songwriting, storytelling goes, is very much coming out of just very emotional personal experience and needing some kind of outlet to process it and put it down on paper. But yeah, right now, though, in like just kind of exploring ideas space rather than like this need to get out my feelings, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And was the style that ultimately you started to like, it's very like, it definitely has a country edge to it. I mean, there's other genres mixed in there. Has it always been like that's kind of like your forte, is like you want to have kind of like this country twing to it all?
I think it was kind of part of my sound from the very beginning, honestly. I grew up listening to a ton of classic folk artists, classic country artists. Like, I remember my parents had told me, apparently I was like a huge fan of Johnny Cash when I was really little. I still love Johnny Cash. But my great grandpa was very amused that like this little 5-year-old was like talking about like Ring of Fire was like her favorite song, So yeah, I grew up listening to a ton of like Simon and Garfunkel and Creedence Clearwater Revival, Peter, Paul and Mary, like all that kind of sound. And then as I got older, like artists like the Lumineers, Mumford and Sons, like the earlier kind of more twee folk, I was like super into at the time. And though I've departed quite a bit from that, and it's not necessarily, what I listen to a ton now, I think there's still definitely like little inflections of that find their way into my writing. But yeah, definitely when I first started writing songs, like in middle school, like it was all very, very like indie folk, like just straight through. And so yeah, I think that's just kind of at the core of writing for me, and especially being focused on like storytelling. Those genres I think really lend themselves to telling a fleshed out story.
Yeah, totally. And was it difficult to find your voice? Because you have such an amazing voice. Like your range is so great. And was that hard to come by, or was it pretty easy for you to kind of like find, you know, what you were going to do with your voice when it came to singing?
Yeah, honestly, kind of hard to come by. Instead of it took a minute, I think, for things to really settle in vocally. I think just my voice developed a lot during like my like late high school, early college years, to where like I had a good voice before, but it wasn't anything like super special, I wouldn't say. And so it really was kind of a labor of just singing all the time, and not necessarily with the goal of like, just really working to get, the strongest voice possible for what I had, but truly just like loving music and singing all the time and listening to artists and kind of subconsciously / consciously noticing what things that I really enjoyed from them, trying to, figure out how to match tones and just through loving music and singing all the time. I think that just really, through a time when my voice was developing a lot, I think that really, really helped. But there was a big kind of vocal evolution from about like maybe 5-6 years ago to like 4 years ago. That period of like 2 years, like things changed quite a bit in my sound. So it's only been more recently that I really see myself as like a singer alongside songwriter, as far as like at the same kind of level. I always kind of saw myself as like a writer first and then also a singer. But yeah, that wasn't at the forefront for me for a while, I feel.
Interesting. And
Yeah.
I love this. I've been talking to some artists too. Well, some queer artists that are kind of getting into this country space, and kind of reclaiming it a little bit with different stories, that you would typically hear in a country song. I've had Andrew Saw on, and Race.
Yeah, yeah.
Like just amazing artists, amazing. And they were saying that they felt like they had to start reclaiming country music for, through the eyes of, their queer audience. And they told me about, sometimes how it can be a little bit of a struggle when you're trying to write yourself into a style that's always been kind of, I don't know, dirt roads, beers, macho-y.
Yeah.
How is that claiming that space for yourself with your music? I'm so curious. Like, it's just such a great, I find it's powerful and empowering for artists. I see it that way. How did you kind of start reclaiming that space?
Yeah, I think there's a part of it where, I mean, at first when you're starting out, you perform to whatever the genre typically asks for, which is usually, up until more recently, as far as like popular country music and popular folk music, is generally more heteronormative. But I think something that happened naturally as I became more comfortable with myself and more just lived more authentically as a queer person and more loudly as a queer person, I felt this kind of conflict within, like, okay, I'm living this way, and yet I'm still like putting some kind of confines around my music, around truly fully embracing that in every part of what I'm doing. And so it kind of was a conscious decision like a few years ago to really like remove that barrier between myself and what I was creating. Because I think you can feel when somebody's not being fully themselves in their music, when something is inauthentic or even just less authentic. if there's something that's being kind of held back, I think 9 times out of 10, you'll, even if you don't consciously think it, you can kind of feel it in the lyrics. And so I just kind of reached this point where I was like, you know what? Like, even though I wasn't necessarily even fully out to some of my extended family at the time, I was like, I think to make the art that I'm proudest of and to truly just like not have any kind of constraints there, like this is something that I need to make a part of my story because it is a big part of my life. And not even necessarily like writing songs that are like purely about queerness, but just it's just part of me and it's part of my experiences. And so not shying away from, when female pronouns come up for a love interest or, whatever it may be. And so it kind of, it went hand in hand with just my own comfortability with myself.
Yeah, I love that. Beautifully described, Amelia.
Thank you.
And it is, like music is so pure and so revealing at times that it has to embody who you are. It comes off kind of, like you said, not very authentic, right? But yours is, your music is so authentic and it feels real, and it's like great stories that you tell, but also like these personal experiences that you were going through at the time you were writing. I imagine, I read that there was a breakup going on and just kind of figuring out who you were a little bit more.
Yeah.
What was your process about bringing together Ego Trip? How did this, we'll call it a record instead of an EP. I mean, we had this little chat before we hopped on here. How do you feel, like, how did that come to be, this record that you've put out in June?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. A lot of different things all together. But yeah, it really was very centered around this pretty pivotal kind of world perspective shifting breakup. And less so because of losing that person and more just how the breakup happened. I've been like very, very lucky to have been able to kind of maintain a very optimistic perspective through most of my life about people and intentions, and to a point where it has been a bit naive, where I really, there are people out there that are, not kind, that are doing bad things objectively, but I've been lucky enough to not be incredibly close to anyone like that. And not to say I hadn't gone through some difficult stuff beforehand, but I was always able to look at, those experiences, and even if someone was doing something that was unkind or cruel in some way, I could still see the human motivations why, and still really like, have empathy for what that person's going through that might have caused them to act the way they did. And still, even in this situation, I still do. But I'd never been truly, there was some infidelity on the other end that I found out way down the line, a lot of other not cool stuff. And I'd never really been betrayed by someone like that before, somebody that I'd like truly genuinely trusted in them being a good person. And so writing this was me processing all the different emotions of both grieving that person, that idea of that person that I then realized, had to reframe a lot of memories and what I actually knew, and kind of rebuild, people like that can kind of change your own perception of yourself. And so kind of deconstructing that and reconstructing like who I really am outside of, the patterns that I'd started to believe in. There's that whole process, but then, even more so just kind of grieving that like naive kind of worldview a little bit. And not to say, and I'm really glad that has been my view for so long. And it still very much is. I'm very glad that like I haven't become really jaded through that experience. Like I still, my innate just knee-jerk reaction is to just trust people off the bat and just like assume the best intentions. But now I have the experiences of like, okay, I can now recognize when that's not the case. I now have more realistic caution. I'm now, putting on the brakes a little bit more. Like, you know, people do need to show that they are trustworthy before I fully, just jump in. And so now I feel like I have got a more healthy balance on it. But yeah, it is kind of, when you realize that about one person, it kind of, at least for me, reframed my just perspective on people and relationships in general. I think for the better, but
Yeah, totally.
definitely.
I mean, it's an experience that we can feel, that we actually can enable it. And I think you said something amazing about empathy, that, you got to develop that skill, right? Like until you've gone through some things, empathy is, I mean, it's not necessarily a natural thing, but seeing things from a different perspective, or where, that other person was at the time. And like, it takes a lot of maturity. And did Ego Trip help kind of settle some of that stuff for you? Like, in the sense that you were able to kind of like, all right, I've created this archive of what happened, and my feelings are in it. And, now I can kind of put it aside and still have it. I mean, it's still a part, it's in the ether, but
Yeah.
that allows you to kind of move forward in a way? Or is it too soon still to come to that realization?
I definitely, yeah, I'm in a place where I'm very much moved forward from that experience. And again, like you said, not to say that it doesn't still hurt, that those feelings still don't come up sometimes. But I do think, both just time, time healing things, but also just being able to continually process these emotions through not only the writing process, the initial process, which was much closer to when I was actually experiencing all these things. It was very immediate, and it was
Super raw, eh? Like,
yeah, it was right. Like, I mean, some of these songs were written, like, there were kind of like two different breakups with this person. And like one of the songs was written in between the two where we were still together. It was started to be written then, and then returned to like a year later with a very different perspective to then make edits to it. So like the writing process was really truly in lockstep with the experiences that are written about in the songs. But then as I'm, more and more removed from the experiences, that's when I'm editing the songs, and that's when I'm recording and now performing them pretty often. And so kind of revisiting those emotions in a way where you have some removal from the experiences, but you're still kind of processing things and thinking about them, and stepping back into that. I do feel like that maybe helps me to heal and to come to some more balanced kind of just acceptance of things, of what happened maybe earlier than I would have otherwise. And yeah, now it's very cathartic to perform these songs now, but it's at enough of a space from where things happened that I'm not like reopening that wound again and again every night. It's like, I'm able to step back into some of those emotions and get them out in a cathartic, healthy way. But then I'm not like just, once I've opened that gate, I'm able to still just like, okay, step back out of it and not take that with me. So yeah, I'm at a good place with everything now. And I do think writing, yeah, was really helpful.
yeah. Well, just hearing your reflections on it, it sounds like you've processed a lot of it, and it kind of like you've created this artifact of Ego Trip, the record. How do you see it now, kind of looking back on it, like when you look at what you achieved and launched in June? How are you feeling about it now, kind of removed a little bit and had some distance to it? And like, are people getting kind of the intent that was in that record? Like, are they getting kind of where you were at and the voice you wanted to put forth?
Yeah, I think so. It's been really cool to kind of interact with people who are listening to the project, who relate to. I mean, it's unfortunate. I'm like, I kind of wish nobody related to it, because I wouldn't want people to have to feel those kinds of things. But it has been very yeah, it's been very meaningful to me to hear people, say that like these songs are cathartic for them to listen to, or that they relate to certain emotions, or it, came out at a time when they kind of needed some of those thoughts. And especially in light of like, the last two songs on the project, I was at a much more balanced, kind of healed perspective coming at those songs. And I think as far as like just, recognizing that what happened was not not great, but kind of coming to peace with it and being able to move forward and, you know, leave that anger behind and recognize that like, yes, anger is important to feel in a process and to get out, but you got to leave that behind at some point in order to move forward for yourself. It only, harms yourself at a certain point, but more so than anyone else. And so it's nice to hear from other people that like they're relating to the songs on the project. And I'm hoping that like, when they get to the point where they're at a point where they can really engage with those last two songs in that way, I'm glad that like that's kind of where the emotions that I'm hopefully leaving people with at the end of that is like, feel those feelings, feel that anger, get that out. Like it is so very natural and also just kind of righteous given whatever you've gone through. But in order to do justice for yourself, you got to reach a point where you're like, yeah, this sucks and this happened. But if I dwell in this forever, like that's only gonna harm me. There's so much more out there. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I think what you speak is truthful here, but singer-songwriters like yourself have the ability to connect human feelings to songs. And for, the vast majority of the world seek these songs, right? So that they do feel like they're not alone out there, or they're not the only ones feeling these, when these are universal feelings, really, right? Like we've all felt tremendous loss at times. All humans will throughout their lifetime.
Yeah.
But you were able to kind of pen these so that people can relate to them. And I think that it opens doors for people. So therapeutic for you, but I think that what you put together and put out there is therapeutic, not only for you, but for tons of people.
Oh man, I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in the end, that's what I imagine that's what you do it for, right? Like that's some of it is to help yourself, but in a way you're also opening up a therapy session for whoever's listening to it in a way, where they can start to reflect about it and kind of find peace, right? You got to find peace. And you also have to find empathy and understand the other points of view, which I think that your music really has this capability of doing in such a great way. My last question for you, and again, thanks so much, Amelia. I really love your answers. You're very thoughtful in your answers that
Thank you.
you've given today.
I mean, these are great questions. So you're making it easy.
Cool. What's the rest of 2026 look like for you and your music? Where do you have any other collabs or music coming down the pipe? I see that you're doing a ton of shows. Is there anything that you would like to plug here?
Oh man, I mean, I've got just, gosh, I don't even know like necessarily at the point that this will be coming out, what shows would be coming up, but I've got a lot. I've got a lot happening. Yeah. So I'm like, there's quite a lot of locations. So wherever you are listening to this, there is a decent possibility that there's a show near you. So I've got like all those dates on my website and stuff.
Cool. Share that for sure in the
Yeah. Thank you, man. But yeah, basically just a ton of shows coming up right now. Most of 2026 has been really focused on, finishing this EP and getting all that together and sharing it. And then just a ton of shows. And so kind of right now, after this next push of shows over the next month, in the fall, I'm going to be actually like a little more kind of static in one place for a little bit, which as much as I do really love shows and traveling, I am definitely looking forward to just having some time to just sit and write. And I've got a lot of songs that I'm kind of in many different stages of working on, but a lot of stuff I'm really psyched about. So I'm kind of moving into writing what will hopefully be like a full length project, like my first one. And it's, I say this while saying like it's so in the beginning stages. So I have no no kind of timeline.
Right.
But, as I'm working on
good.
that.
Like as these songs are feeling good.
I'm very, very excited. Like some of the most excited I've been about music that I've made. A lot of them are kind of half finished. So I need to really just take the time, sit down and really like kind of, figure out the rest of those. But yeah, I think in the meantime, like as I'm working on this larger project, this, longest project that I'll have put out ever, I do definitely foresee like I have a couple of songs that I'm thinking will be just kind of standalone things outside of the album. Definitely, planning some more in-depth touring for early 2027 as well. But yeah, and then hopefully I definitely want to release some like live audio from shows. We've just been playing so many. My band is like just ridiculously talented. Like it's stupid. Like
you guys are zoning big time now. Like it's all coming together.
Oh my God. It's so fun. Like you get to a point where you've been playing with people for enough shows that like it just, there's so many things that are just communicated subconsciously or just like with, you twitch your head one way and that like, I don't know, you get to just like a nonverbal level with stuff. It's so fun. And I just want, if people aren't able to come to shows or, live somewhere where we're not playing, like I want to share the stuff that my band's kind of put on top of some of these songs that I think have made them, a lot of them even cooler stuff that I wish I had in the recordings, So I definitely, I want to put out some live stuff on the streaming, whatever.
Your live videos and there's such great energy. You're
thank you,
wonderful performer. Like you just have the thing. You have it.
Thank you.
I think so.
That means I have so much fun doing it. I used to genuinely have like really awful stage fright when it came to like singing specifically and music. Like I mean, I didn't have much trouble with like public speaking earlier on, like, but for some reason, I mean, I kind of know the reason, like singing is just so personal and so like, it's so important to yeah. There's like another level of like, oh God, it's you're kind of performing your journal in front of people.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, now I love it more than anything. Like it truly is just like my favorite thing in the world. So yeah, I'm glad that joy kind of comes through even on the screen, the videos.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you again. Please don't stop. Keep doing what you're doing. I think it's starting to feel bigger and bigger as the world rolls on, and I think you're in a great spot right now too for
Thank you.
And the genre that you're putting forth, that it's just so needed. It's a personal, but it's also empowering at the same time. So people out there, if you can go and see Amelia Day, check her out. She's got this new great record that just hit, Ego Trip, and puts on a hell of a show. Amelia, thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
This has been a
pleasure,
and I've really enjoyed this chat with you.
Hey, likewise. Yeah, thank you, Chris.
I know you like it when they scream your name, baby, like you're one of them big pop stars. Yeah, you are. Sequins in the set and you're selling now. Manhattan, knocking back till you're seeing stars. I know you like the back of your hand, stabbing me between my shoulder blades. So it aches. I'm parsing your pathology, manager psychology, dizzy dissertation inside my brain, but I knew you then before all of this, but you left me for your ego trip. 'Cause you got no repercussions, take another chance, no consequences if you're making them dance. Ooh, you don't need to be a girl on this level if you're turning out. your charm. Casting up your life, smoking fumes, breathing fire, liar lingers on the sleeves of your arm. Still, I knew you then for all of this, but you left me for your ego trap. But you got no repercussions, taking all the chance, no consequences if you're making them damn. Ooh, you don't need to be a goddess lover if you're turning our heads, then shit. Not another, holding down another, don't hold me back. I can feel it under covers in the way that you laughed. 2 years undercover, now who was that? But you know, you know, you know, you know, you know. Glimpses of the girl under the party axe, passing father down to daughter, pain repeating the past. Blur my mind to turn, reading fiction and facts. But you know, 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 you know that you got no repercussions, take another chance, no consequences if you're making them dance. Ooh, you don't need to be a kind, honest lover if you're turning out hits, then shit.